Welcome back to Top of Mind. My name is Hayley Westerby, and today is a solo episode where we are going to be talking about how to create a week's worth of content in just 1 hour. Now, this is a framework that I use every single week. It's a framework that I've shared with our clients, and it's a framework that I've shared with literally everybody I know that complains to me about how long it takes to edit, shoot, capture, and post their content every week. In this episode, I am going to take you through that framework, and I'm going to show you how simple it can be when I break down the framework for you to then be able to consistently create content. Now, one of the biggest problems in the world of small businesses, medium businesses, and brand building in general is that consistency wins. So if you're not consistently showing up every week or every month, that is the thing that is going to jeopardize your conversions, the awareness of your business or your brand, and ultimately have an impact on how people perceive you, right? And the way that I liken that to is, you know, if you have a friend that turns up once every 3 months, is like, hey, I'm here, you want to do something with me? And then you don't see them again for 3 months. You're less likely to be like, oh yeah, you know what? I do want to hang out. Whereas if you have a friend that checks in on you like weekly or fortnightly, or even daily if you're that kind of friend, but I feel like in your 30s you kind of get out of your daily check-ins. But if you have a friend that consistently checks in and is like, hey, what are you doing? When they propose, hey, we should go out for dinner, or we should go get a bite to eat, or go and do something, you're so much more convinced to do it because you've seen them consistently and they've showed up consistently. And that is how sales work. That is how brand and conversion works. And people trust people that turn up consistently. So this framework that I'm going to talk you through is all about how to build that trust and that consistency. Now, what I want to preface is that I have made this broad intentionally. And the reason for that is because we speak to service providers, cafe owners, tradies, photographers, artists. Like, we have such a massive group of clients that we speak to on a weekly basis. So I want to make sure that the advice that I'm giving relies on not just one industry, but can be applicable to all, if not most industries. I suppose the common truth that I'm finding with all industries is that all of these businesses or brands already have a whole heap of content, and they're just not thinking in content, and it's hiding in plain sight. It's about pulling out those ideas really quickly and executing. One thing that I'm hearing over and over again on a variety of podcasts, a variety of meetings that I've been in with successful founders, and a variety of interviews that I have coming up on this podcast with successful business owners and founders, is that execution and speed of execution matters. So I do not want you dwelling on perfectionism. I want you to repeat after me, done is better than perfect. Because done is better than perfect is going to get you that consistent runs on the board, the consistent check-ins, that is going to get you better. Nobody started off great, and I want you to remember that. In any capacity. If you're going into the gym for the first time, no one started lifting 100 kilos. Nobody did. But they've built and chipped away every single day or week that has then led them to lift that amount. It's the same as athletes. It's the same as great business owners. Like, no one started off great. No one started off knowing exactly what to do. But by getting runs on the board and chipping away at it each week, you will get better. If you need to feel better about yourself, feel free to go back to the very, very early days of my Instagram, whether that's personal or business. It was shocking. Like, shocking. But if I didn't start, I wouldn't be where I am now. And if I didn't start, I wouldn't have the confidence to be talking to you through a camera or on a podcast. So start, chip away at it, and learn from it. Learn from those reps on the board, because that is the thing that is going to get you better, more consistent, more conversion, more awareness. Quick pause for a second. I just want to quickly interrupt to ask you one thing. If you are loving the content that you are listening to, make sure you hit subscribe or leave a review. I want to keep these podcast episodes ad-free for as long as possible, and the only way that I can do that is by you guys subscribing or leaving a great review or sharing it with a friend. So that's all I ask of you today. Now back to the episode. My framework is called PACE. P-A-C-E. I like this framework because it talks to sustainable consistency, pacing yourself. Now, I am no runner, but we've all heard of the term or the saying, pace yourself. It is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it really is when it comes to creating content. So I want you to pace yourself, set a cadence that you can maintain over a long period of time. If that is only posting once a week, over 52 weeks of the year, you're going to be posting 52 times more than if you don't post at all. So stick to a cadence that you can stick to every single week, every single month for a long period of time. PACE stands for P is for plan, A is for action, C is for caption, E is for execute. PACE. That's all you need to remember. And I'm going to talk you through this framework to help you create content in an hour for the rest of your week. Now, I need to caveat that the work that you do before implementing this structure is really important, and it's pivotal to the success of this structure working. What you need to do first before you employ this structure or try and create content in an hour, you need to have your content pillars mapped out. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say content pillars, your content pillars are the three things that you're known for, or the three kind of pieces of themes of content that you create that you're known for. In my instance, or my case, I talk about personal branding, I talk about accessible marketing, and I share my founder story. They are the three things that you will see across all of my personal channels. My content pillars are very different for the business, and then my content pillars are very different again for our chili oil business. So having content pillars for your personal brand and your business brand, super important. Shameless plug, we are running a content pillars workshop that only my email subscribers will get access to. So make sure that you sign up to my emails, because the link is in the show notes, because only the people that have access to our emails will get an exclusive invite to these workshops. So I'm running a workshop on content pillars at the end of this year. If you're listening to this podcast episode and it's already past the end of 2025, I'm sorry, but I will likely be running another one. So make sure you're signed up to our emails, because that is where I share all of our exclusive workshops and events for all of my email subscribers. Anyway, that was a side note. So content pillars. Your content pillars are three things that you can talk about unprompted. So if someone gave you a mic and said, hey, chat about this for the next 30 minutes and keep this audience entertained, you could chat about it. Three things you want to be known for, which some people really struggle with as a question because it is quite egotistical. Map out what your content pillars are first. For example, it could be, if you're a tradie, for example, you might have the first content pillar is like your services, what you do, like what is it that you do, right? That's your first content pillar. Your second content pillar might be proof of work, or, you know, jobs that you've done, or social proof, which is examples of work that you've done. And then your third is like what makes you different, or your story, right? They're your three content pillars. All of the content that you produce needs to ladder up to those three content pillars, and I'll explain later on how that's relevant. But if you need help mapping your content pillars, I either strongly advise for you to spend some time beforehand doing that, come along to our workshop or whatever, whatever you can do to figure out what your content pillars are, because you need to understand what your content pillars are before implementing the PACE framework. The other thing that you need to do is make sure that you have a really clear objective for your content. Why are you producing content? And again, if you're producing content from a founder standpoint or a personal brand standpoint, that objective is going to be very different to the objective of your business, right? So for example, me producing content as a founder is to build my awareness amongst other business owners. That's it. I want people to know about me. My business objective is to help as many people access marketing regardless of their budgets. That's our objective. So again, making sure that your content ladders up to that objective, and that becomes almost like your triage point for creating content. Why are you creating this content? Does it ladder up to the objective that you're trying to achieve? I had a meeting with someone last week and they literally said to me, I feel like my content's not converting, and my first thing was, what do you want to get out of the content that you're sharing? Or are you just sharing content for the sake of sharing content? And her answer to that was, well, I'm just trying to get as many pieces of content out there. But she had no objective, and she wasn't making it clear that actually her goal was to pick up work overseas so that she could move overseas for a period of time. So I would be making sure that every piece of content weaves in that objective, right? Weaves in why you're sharing content. You know, some might be more overt than others. It might be, you know, in my bid to try and secure overseas work, here are 3 reasons why you should hire me as someone from, you know, living abroad, or this is my skill set. You can make it really overt like that, or you could then start sharing, you know, great ideas or thoughts that you've had. But then at the end, it's like, my goal is to meet as many people that are living and working overseas in my industry. Please let me know if you want to reach out and we can have a 10-minute call. Like, I'd love to talk to you about what you're doing, blah, 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 building your network. So there's 2 ways, but ultimately they're all laddering up to her wanting to work overseas. The last thing that you need to do before you start implementing the PACE framework is having a really simple brand guideline. If you don't know what your brand guideline is, it's going to make this framework a lot longer, because you're going to wrestle with what fonts you're using, what colors you're using, how you're presenting it, if you don't have this really simple framework. Now, having a really simple brand guideline or Canva template that you can utilize in your business is really important, because it's one of those things that then allows you to just dump the content that you've created from this framework into a template and then deploy it. So if you haven't already done that, either reach out to someone to help you. We can help, but I'm not saying you just have to reach out to us. Reach out to someone who can help you, or spend some time building out what that brand template or guideline looks like to make your life easier. It is not I'll do that sometimes, or I'll do that at some point. It's a to do now to make your life easier. Like, it's that old saying of, if a, you know, wood chopper had 12 hours to cut down the tree, he would spend the first 11 hours sharpening the knife. Having your content pillars and your brand template or guidelines in place is you sharpening the knife before you cut down the tree, create your content. Because creating content isn't the hard part. It's actually all of the things like, what am I talking about? Why am I talking about it? All of those things beforehand that you need to nut out prior to then actually consistently creating content every single week. So once you've done that, we're going to get into the framework. The first one is spend 10 minutes planning. 10 minutes, that's all you need. You need to understand how many pieces of content you need. Perhaps have a look at what content worked previously and can you reproduce any of that content or present it differently. So for the, I suppose, purpose of this exercise or this podcast, I'm going to say I need 3 Instagram posts, 3 TikTok posts, and 1 LinkedIn post. Now that's a lot of content, but I'm just using it as an example with this framework. So what I would do then is, with my 3 personal branding pillars, or my personal brand pillars, what I would then do is divide that content up amongst my content pillars. So I would say, okay, I've got 7 posts in total. I'm going to do 2 posts on personal branding, 2 posts on making marketing accessible. I'm going to do 2 posts on my founder story. And then my 1 post for LinkedIn is going to be a duplicate of my founder story, because the last 2 weeks I've talked about personal branding and accessible marketing, right? Because the key here is that you want to make sure that there is equal parts of content laddering up to each one of your content pillars. So if you look on Instagram, for example, every 3 squares might ladder up to a particular content pillar. So in this instance, across Instagram and TikTok, I'm going to talk about personal branding twice, how to make marketing accessible twice, and my founder story twice. That's 6 posts. I'm then on LinkedIn going to share one post which is around my founder story. Okay, that's 7 pieces of content. Breaking that down further, my 2 posts about personal branding, the topics I might choose are why is having a personal brand important and how I grew my personal brand. They're my 2 topics for my 2 posts. The 2 accessible marketing posts are the 3 things that you need in your marketing mix or plan is one idea. And the second one is marketing versus AI. And the 2 pieces of content that I'm going to create around my founder story is a pinch me story, which is a personal story that I want to share about a recent project that we worked on, which was TikTok. Mind blown. And the second story that I want to talk about, or the second post that I want to create, is sharing a recent learning in business, which is around managing my energy, not my time. And then lastly, my LinkedIn post, which is going to be on founder story, is going to take one of my Instagram or TikToks that I've created about founder story that week and adapt it to LinkedIn so that I'm not making too much work for myself. One big tip that I can give you when you're like, oh, I just can't come up with these ideas, 2 things. You need to consume content so you can create it. If you are not consuming content about the thing that you're interested in, you are not going to come up with ideas or pieces of content that you could be creating, right? Secondly, if you are not keeping record of ideas that you come up with, you are always going to struggle with content. Now I have, wait, let me get my phone. I have in my phone a note section that I'm going to show you that literally breaks down. I've got one pinned note that says LinkedIn posts. And if you are watching this on Spotify or YouTube, you can see my notes section. And I've literally got, I don't know if you can see that, but hundreds of ideas that I literally write down at any moment in time, because you will never come up with a content idea when you're sitting at your desk going, okay, ready for content. You'll come up with a content idea in the shower, when you're on a walk, when you finish a meeting. Like, there are so many places that you will come up with ideas. And for me, it's in a meeting when I'm meeting with my clients. There's so many questions that get thrown around. I'm like, oh, that could be a piece of content. So I write them all down in my phone, because when it comes to creating content each week, I then don't get stuck on what to talk about. So keep a content note in your phone, which documents ideas, trends, screenshots of content or idea that you want to replicate, anything like that. If you are building a personal brand, ensure that you have content that you can collaborate with your business brand. So I always like to recommend that you keep those 2 accounts separate. If you're building a business brand and you're building a personal brand, for a number of reasons. The main reasons being that your personal brand will be with you forever. Your business brand might not. And it's really important to separate the 2. However, it will be quite common that content overlaps on those pages, right? So if you are coming up with content where you can collaborate between the 2, so for example, me collaborating with Top of Mind, or me collaborating with Gambit Collective, which is our marketing agency, or me collaborating with Spicy Boy, which is my chili oil brand, I will collaborate with those pages, because then it means the content sits on both of those pages without me having to produce it twice. So really work smarter, not harder, when it comes to creating content that can sit across both of those Instagram pages. If you are loving this episode, don't forget to leave a comment or hit that subscribe button. You have no idea how much it means for podcasters like me to get a like or subscribe, because it means that we can get better guests and we can get into more ears of people to help talk to them about marketing, social media, and personal branding. Now back to the episode. Once you've planned out your content, right? You've picked the amount of posts that you want to share every week. You've divided it up based on what content pillars you're talking to for each of those pieces of content. Quickly, can I remind you that if you are doing 1 post per week, that means for 3 weeks, it'll be content pillar 1 the first week, content pillar 2 the second week, content pillar 3 the third week, and then you just keep repeating, okay? So you don't have to have 7 pieces of content that you're creating every week. If you are just starting on 1 post per week, just filter through the different content pillars that you have. That's 10 minutes. That shouldn't take you any longer than 10 minutes. It might take you a little bit longer at the start, but once you get in the habit of doing it, it will fly. Once you've done that for 10 minutes, spend 30 minutes actually creating the content. Whether that is creating your Canva template, whether that is writing a long piece of content, whether that is recording yourself or recording things that you need to do, record yourself talking about those things, whatever it is, spend 30 minutes creating content. There was this great quote that I heard the other day that was like, if you give yourself 3 hours to clean the house, it'll take you 3 hours. So it's like whatever time you give yourself is the time that it will take to get the job done. So give yourself 30 minutes to create content, smash it out, and remember that done is better than perfect. Once you've created the content that you need, whether that's shooting the videos, creating the carousels or the static posts that you have in Canva, just create the content that you need. Don't overproduce it, don't overthink it. The one hack that I have that if you're getting used to showing yourself on camera is record yourself doing something. I currently have my camera set up here whilst I'm recording this podcast, which literally is capturing me recording the podcast, but then I can snip it down to a 10-second clip and put some text over the top of it. And that is one piece of content done for the week, right? I can use that content over and over again if I have a long piece of content. So don't forget to film yourself doing random things, whether it's sitting on your laptop, if you're a tradie doing work, if you're literally at an office job or whatever, recording yourself working on the computer or on the phone. Record yourself, clip it to some music, put the text over the top that ladders back up to your content pillar. Super simple hack and the easiest way. I call it like the gateway drug to get into content creation of your own self, right? Putting yourself on camera. Record yourself doing something, put some text over the top, put it with a cool sound, send it on its way. So 30 minutes you're going to action, which is the A in pace, and create that content, right? Then the next 10 minutes, we're at the 40-minute mark now, you're gonna spend captioning all of this content, right? So with all of your final content that you've created, ensure your caption gives a little bit more context to the content that you've created. This is where your objective is really, really important. Ensure your content has meaning. Why did you share it? Why did you want to create this kind of content for your audience or your customer? Are you getting people to act on something? Are you wanting people to sign up for something? Are you wanting people to book a discovery call? Do you just want people to know about you? Encouraging people to do something off the back of your post is really important, because the more times you say it, the more they'll understand why you're sharing content. One thing that I want to be really, really clear on is your call to actions. And that's typically asking someone to do something. So it might be like book a discovery call or, book in a free shoot with us, whatever it is. They don't need to be super overt. And I think sometimes people can be way too salesy with them, right? They go, oh, book this in, blah, 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 or sign up with us now. And it's just like people switch off when they hear sales. So some ways in which you can kind of create call to actions as part of your captions that don't necessarily scream, buy from me. Some of the best call to actions are simply asking questions, inviting opinions, giving people a reason to interact. It is so important that your call to action is in your tone of voice. If you wouldn't say it out loud, don't put it in your caption, and certainly don't put it in your call to action. What I mean by that is that if you are a cafe, you can say, tell your friends we open at 8. Bring your friends. We'll see you at 8. Like, there's so many ways in which you can put it that's not come and shop with us or buy a coffee from us, or, you can encourage people to come and try the new menu items. You can say, have you tried our new menu items? If you're a tradie, you can say, hit this post and save it for when you need it. Or ask people if they need help with something. If you're a photographer, you can say spots are limited next month, or which moment do you want captured? I am quickly interrupting to let you know that all of the good stuff lives in our emails. Cheat sheets, exclusive events, workshops that we run for our community that are centered around marketing, social media, and personal branding. You can sign up for our emails in the show notes. Back to the episode. If you're a service-based business, you can say, I see this mistake all the time. Have you made it? Ask a question that invites that interaction if you're sharing a mistake. Or do you need us to break it down for you? Let me know in the comments below. Like, encourage that conversation and ensure it is a two-way dialogue, not just a one-way dialogue. That is caption creating. The last 10 minutes should be execute, which is the E in PACE. It is scheduling. It is posting. Now, time and time again, I speak with business owners and founders and they don't schedule their content. Scheduling isn't cheating. It is making sure that you are efficient with the time that you have. Schedule using platforms like Later or Hootsuite, but also you can schedule in-app. So if you're scheduling on LinkedIn or you're scheduling on Instagram, they all have inbuilt scheduling features. So utilize the scheduling features, build out all of your content for the following week so that you don't have to worry about posting that content because you're busy doing the work. This framework is all about making something efficient for you. We're not about making things harder or more complicated. So use the 10 minutes that you have in your day to schedule the content and forget about it until the next week. What you can really do with this framework that should only take you an hour is if you want to double down and once every fortnight you do 2 hours because you're then working 1 or 2 weeks in advance would be the optimal. Because most of the content that you're creating can be what we call evergreen, which lives at any point, at any time of day, whenever. So plan ahead. If you can, spend 2 hours planning 2 weeks of content using this framework, the PACE framework, and then you're always working 1 week in advance. And you'll never feel like you're overwhelmed or you're working behind schedule. There is another way that you can do it, and this is kind of one of the reasons that I started the podcast. The other way that you can do it is either record a long form piece of content like I'm doing today, or write a long form piece of content. I'll use this podcast for example. So this podcast is all about creating 1 week of content in an hour. I've spoken about it for however long I've spoken for. And then each of those pieces of content, whether it's written or recorded, can be broken down into smaller pieces of content. So I would then break this episode down into how to create 1 week of content in an hour, an overview. The second post would be an overview of the PACE framework, what it stands for, why I use it. And then the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth post is going into each of the frameworks. So P, A, C, E. Would be 3, 4, 5, and 6 pieces of content. And then the 7th piece of content would be how this framework has helped me. And that's 7 pieces of content from 1 long form piece of content. So whatever you're more comfortable doing, do that. But don't forget the PACE framework, because consistency beats creativity every single day of the week. Don't forget that PACE stands for plan, action or execute, caption, and then execute. Pull the trigger, schedule it, right? PACE framework is going to allow you to create content really efficiently every week. I encourage you to try it for the next 3 months. Set yourself a pace or a cadence that you can stick to for the next 3 months and tell me how you go. Tag me in your results, share with me on socials, DM me, let me know how you go with this. I know that we're talking about locking in for the last few months of the year, but this is really your time to lock in, try something, see if it works for you. If you have any feedback on the framework, something takes you longer or you're stuck on something, please reach out to me because I would love to help you. As always, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another business owner who needs this help or advice. Thank you so much for sitting with me today. I love spending time with you guys, and I really hope you've learned something new and that you can take something away with you today about how the PACE framework can work for you when it comes to creating content for your personal brand or your business.